2017.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What video that you've seen is the most compelling that's been released? And have you seen anything that hasn't been released that's more compelling?
One of the ones that hasn't been released is got more emotional impact, certainly.
Can you give us a tease?
The UFO is going really close to this guy, and he's freaking out for good reason. But
at around the 2040 mark, Joe asks Mellon what is the most compelling video evidence he's seen. Mellon describes an unreleased video that has more emotional impact than the other publicly available videos. Two Navy pilots are flying side by side when a UFO starts approaching them at a very high speed and proceeds to fly right in between them. The one pilot is apparently freaking out from this very close encounter. Mellon says the Navy has admitted a near mid-air collision occurred, and a publicly available safety report was filed. Hopefully someday that the video will be released.
But that doesn't mean that the object was necessarily super advanced craft. You know, he's going so fast. You know, maybe it was actually moving slowly and hanging there, and he went by it super fast. But his perception was that something was coming real fast at him and going right between him and another guy. And it's all unclassified stuff, but doesn't resolve any of these issues. But it's pretty compelling.
So that
there's something like that along those lines. The Navy has admitted there was a near mid-air collision. Safety report was filed. That's all public information. And I think, you know, again, it's frustrating to see this attitude of, you know, we've got to lock everything down. We've got to classify everything right away, even if it's a guy with an iPhone.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not a secret sensor or anything. You don't have to worry about the source, you know, because an informed public, more of the scientific community will get involved. They'll bring more expertise to bear, and people have better assess this issue and whether something needs to be done about it. Because right now, almost nothing is being done about it. They've got a tiny task force with a few guys who are trying to collect information and write a report for the Senate. And I think what's going to be significant about it is it's due next month. They're not going to be able to say what Project Blue Book said, which was there's nothing really happening here. There's nothing of national security interest. There's no advanced technology that's beyond what we have. Blue Book said both of those things. It said not only is it not ET, but we don't see any mysterious technology, and we don't see any reason to be concerned from a national security standpoint. I don't see how this report can say any of those things. So I think when that, you know, assuming they do deliver the report and they acknowledge that this is happening, it's continuing to happen, they have other classified information that should be weighed and factored into their unclassified judgment and report that's released. They won't give the details, but the people that write the assessment of this should have the knowledge of that. And I think if they do a straight up job, they're going to have to acknowledge that there are indications of technology more advanced than anything we possess, and that there is a legitimate national security issue.
So that one video that flies very close to the pilot, that's the one that you find to be the most compelling?
That has the most, I think, emotional impact on people. I think the gimbal video, when you understand that there's a second fleet of UFOs that are maneuvering near those guys, in addition to what you're seeing there and the pilot's reaction and the maneuvering, that's probably the most compelling. The FLIR video that we haven't talked about much does show this instantaneous acceleration, which is another thing that we don't have. We can't do. We don't have anything that can sit there hovering and then just suddenly, whoosh, you know.
And the FLIR video was the one of the Tic Tac, correct?
That was that Tic Tac, correct.
See if we can find that. FLIR, correct?
Correct.
What does that stand for?
Forward-looking infrared radar.
Okay. And this is, again, after Commander Fravor had spotted the thing.
Correct. So
this is it.
There's two aviators in those F-18s. There's a pilot and a weapons system operator behind him. And there were two F-18s that saw the Nimitz with two people in them. So that's four aviators all seeing the same thing in perfect conditions.
Toggling through different methods of viewing this thing to try to get a better...
Right. Correct.
perspective, a better view of it.
Yeah, and
So
he had
this
been
is-
following what was going on earlier in the day and wanted to go out and try to get on this thing. Gung-ho Navy pilot. And all of a sudden it decides it doesn't want to be there anymore.
So what we're watching, for folks who are just listening, is he's toggling also from looking at it in looks like 1x, and then he goes and zooms in occasionally. He's going back and forth. What is he doing here?
He's trying to get a lock on it, and that will enhance his ability to track it. And
You might be wondering, these reports almost never come from anywhere else in the world. If so, nowhere near this severity and this amount of detail. I'm not questioning the validity of these in the slightest, but where are the stories from Her Majesty's Armed Forces, the Japanese, Australians, India, the Middle Eastern nations, most of the European nations, particularly the French and the Germans? First of all, military men have been reporting credible encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena since at least WWII. But the military itself and the establishment media have publicly maintained an uninterested or dismissive face until relatively recently. That's more or less the standard response to a possible unknown threat. So it makes sense that most other countries have followed suit. So the question is not necessarily why do these phenomena interact only with the US, but what has changed in the US in the last 5 years to change our public response. Perhaps we have made some breakthrough recently that changes our understanding of the phenomena and makes this defaulting to secrecy less reasonable. Or perhaps we fear our adversaries may. Finally, there have been a lot of reports that the phenomena seem attracted to military technology, and especially nuclear weapons. Perhaps they have a special interest, hopefully benevolent, in our planet's cutting-edge weapons of war. If so, it makes sense that the US might report more sightings. I've held quite the interest in the subject, so I keep tabs on as much as time allows. I guess what my intrigue is, why is the United States government going official with this now, yet with no support from other forces around the world? I keep referring to it, so I do apologize for sounding like a broken record. But with how strong the United States-Australia's relationship is, and with the fact they share the most important joint military surveillance installation base in the entire world in the Australian outback, I'm surprised an ally such as Australia hasn't also publicly acknowledged these phenomena, because if the US is seeing them, so is Australia. There's no chance other nations' military haven't had similar encounters, and once the US jumps on and goes public, it would seem the perfect time for other nations to also acknowledge it, as let's face it, it won't get near the attention as the US, which is a good thing, as nobody likes people peeking into their backyard. A good reason for this would be what Mellon said, rising tensions in the US. It's a long shot, but bringing interest in this subject and uncovering new evidence might make people look beyond the color of someone's skin, raise political views, income, when they have proof that there is so much more going on in and possibly beyond this world. He gave the example of WWII, or war in general, if I remember correctly. This could make sense. A sort of psychological effect on society given the current climate. Hey guys, look, we're being visited by aliens. Another reason might just be because everybody has a phone now and these videos and stories are so widely available and accepted.